one. Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. As I love to do, I love to start with a question, and I got a really good one that's like, you're going to be like, what? That doesn't even make sense. So just stick with me today as I ask this question, and maybe you're in the midst of this right now. And the question that I have for you is like, when's the last time you had a negative thought? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck does that have to do with business? And we're going to unpack that today. We're going to have a ball. I'm honored to be hanging out with Shay Springer. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you started a company called Whole Life Mind and Body. So why don't you fill us in on what that is? We're dying to learn more about that.
So, whole life, mind, and body is a holistic spiritual practice, sort of. It has
Okay.
nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with Christianity. Christianity. It's
Yep.
really about yourself, oneself, recognizing who you are. And at Whole Life, Mind, and Body, what we do is we are hypnotherapists, NLP practitioners.
Okay.
We work on the entire existence. We do some energy work there as well, but it's the entire existence of the mind, the body, and the soul.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I love that sort of. So it's kind of, it's like kind of pregnant, this is
Right.
going to be, we're going to have a ball. So I
Yeah.
want to kind of start with that thought about negative thoughts because you talked about NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. And I
Mhm.
don't know a ton about that, but help us understand what that is. So for somebody listening right now, that does struggle with negative thoughts. Let's just keep it
Mhm.
super simple, super easy. They're
Yeah.
the glass half empty type of person. They're the one that tends to find something wrong with everything that's going on around in whether, personally or out in the world.
Mm.
How do you help that person? Because again, I'm guessing it might be a blind spot for a lot of people. They might not even know that they have it. Okay. So, like
Yeah.
when you think about NLP or the neuro linguistic programming, Shay, what does that mean for us? Kind of walk us through what that is.
Yeah, it's kind of a really big word. So I want to keep it really simple so that people can really understand what that
Love
means.
it.
So I'm just
Love
going
it.
to break it apart in really simple parts. Neuro
Okay.
means the brain. It's the study of the brain, right? And how the brain functions, how the brain takes in information.
Okay.
Linguistic is the language that we use every day, which of course connects that information comes from the brain, and it's just how we think about things.
Okay.
So yeah, so NLP basically helps, it's a process of coaching and it helps people to eliminate negative thoughts. So if you're
Okay.
someone who constantly thinks in a negative space, then we go through this process of helping you to get out of that space. And a lot
Awesome.
of time it's elicited through a basic timeline of taking you back to where the problem actually began. And a lot
Okay.
of times basically when we have those negative thoughts, it comes from way before.
Okay.
And it just happens to live up with you to today.
So can I blame my parents for this one?
You can.
Right? We always want to blame. Hey, we love blaming other people, right?
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
but so thank you for that simple definition. But and I want to kind of go, I want to ask a question way maybe deeper than we want to go, but I really am curious because like where did it come from? Because sometimes I feel like when I have negative thoughts, sometimes I feel like it feels dirty or I feel ashamed,
Mhm.
right? There's
Mhm.
negative feelings that kind of come
Mhm.
along with the negative
Yeah.
thoughts. So where, uh, obviously it could come from a lot of places. So I don't know if you can pinpoint it, but does it start when you're younger in your world and you're exposed to a lot of that, or where do you normally see that start from, Shay?
I'm so excited that you asked me this question because this is about to get really real for you. I love this.
Cool.
So, a lot of our negative thoughts and our negative habits happens when we're in the womb,
Okay.
right? In the womb of your mother. So let's think
Wow.
about it like this. Let's think about it
Okay.
like when you're in your mother's womb. there is an umbilical cord attached to you, right? That
Okay.
umbilical cord is your lifeline. It holds everything. It holds mother's memories. It holds mother's feelings. It's not just a cord that nourishes you. It is the
Okay.
whole embodiment of you. So if
Okay.
mom is going through a trial and tribulation, because remember, a child can hear inside of the womb. A child
Okay.
can feel because of the central nervous system that it is attached to within inside of the mother's womb. So
Okay.
if the mother is in distress, the baby feels that. If
Okay.
the mother is arguing with a significant other, the baby hears that. So
Hmm.
what do you think happens when that baby is taking in that information into their central nervous system?
Sure. Oh my gosh, that's really good to know. I mean, the interesting thing though, then I kind of feel like the next question is, it's if it's not my fault necessarily, how do I fix it, right? Because if it's something that was done to me, so to speak, I mean, when you think about the NLP, we're reprogramming some of the
Mhm.
things that we learned as a kid.
Mhm.
I'm not good enough, or I
Mhm.
suck, or whatever they are, whatever we struggle with. I could never do that. Whatever the words are that people have. And before I ask my question there, that brings up another one. Do we tend to see a lot of times people have a lot of that? Is there one big thought like I'm not good enough, or do there tend to be a ton of different thoughts that people battle with at that spot?
They tend to battle with a number of different things. It's not just that they're not good enough. They're
Okay,
hurting and they don't know why they're hurting. They're angry
okay,
and they don't know why they're angry. It just really depends. I mean, I have seen people that they hold on to thoughts because they remember when you take them through this illicit timeline, it's a process, right? It's not an
sure,
easy step. And it's pretty complicated, and we couldn't cover it all on this episode. But
sure.
when we take them through that process, some of them actually end up remembering where it first began. And sometimes it's like 3 months or four months after their hearing has developed within inside the womb. They can actually recall what has
Gosh.
happened to mother, and
Okay,
then they can come back and talk to, if their mother is still living, and ask them about it, right?
sure.
And 9 times out of 10, it's been a confirmation that whatever they heard inside the womb, mother has actually confirmed that.
Sure. Wow. And then, so to try to tie that into business, so fast forward the tape, I start a business, or you start a business, or a listener starts a business, or they work in corporate, really doesn't matter.
Mhm.
But these negative thoughts just kind of when do they start? I mean, do you notice them growing up? Because I feel like for me personally, Shay, there were a lot of negative thoughts that I had to battle, whether I wasn't
Yeah.
strong enough or smart enough, or there was just those self-defeating thoughts. And part of me is like, I just was like, oh, that must just be human, but it doesn't feel like that was really normal. And I'm just not normal like in a good or bad way. It just didn't feel like it was, number one, it didn't feel healthy.
Yeah.
Um, but like, how do you like, I mean, like are there simple strategies to kind of work that through as a kid or an adult? If somebody's listening right now and they're struggling with that?
It's not a simple answer, and I wish that
Okay.
it really was. I mean,
Yep.
negative thoughts can begin from the time you're in the womb. It could start as early as kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, right? There
Sure.
really isn't a simple answer to that. The thing is when you notice them, right? When you notice them. So some kids can say at the age, say in second grade, they can
Yeah.
say, I think negative thoughts and I don't know why, right?
Okay.
You just
Sure.
know it's happening there and how to deal with that and how to support that child during that process, right? And most people don't realize that this is happening because of something previous,
Wow.
but they start to
Okay.
notice it early on in
Sure.
life.
So if I was a business owner and I had a team, and on that team were people that were negative,
Mhm.
is do I mean, as a owner of a business, do I like help? I mean, what do I do in that situation if I have some people on the team? You
Y-
know, kind
Your mic is now going back in and out.
of, uh-oh, sorry,
That's
figures.
okay.
cut it out, Dana. Make us sound really good, Dana. Okay. So I'm just curious if people like, how can I say it in a way? I mean, negative thoughts, but yet, how do I mean, I know it's difficult to kind of fix. Are most people aware that they're negative? I guess is a
No,
question that I had for you.
no, most people are
Okay,
not
so
aware
that's a
that they're
big
negative.
blind spot for people.
That is a huge
Okay,
blind spot for people.
so
In fact, when someone is being negative, they actually think they're being positive. Right? They think they're
okay,
being positive. It's like the reverse effect, right? You're the outsider looking in, and you can clearly see that there is something not quite right going on there. But they, in their
sure.
heads,
Okay,
because of how they live their lives for so long, they believe that they're actually positive. They're being positive. So that
okay.
is, yeah, that's a,
And those are just yeah. Oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just curious if like 'cause I think of like I feel like once you have a thought, it's like a path and it
Yes.
gets easier and easier to walk on like in snow, right? If you have 12 inches of snow and then you find a path, it's way easier to walk on that path.
Yeah.
So like you just naturally do those thoughts. And
Yes.
then I feel like people that like we coach, they feel like, well, that's just who I am. I'm just a negative person. And that seems like just a cop out to really not deal with what's really going on. Would
And
you
it
agree?
is. I would agree 100%. It's easier for people to say, this is how I am, instead of really taking a step back, pausing, and recognize this is not who you are. This is who you're choosing to be at this time. And
Okay.
that's another part of this, right? We all
Sure.
have the ability to change behaviors,
Okay.
to eliminate how we feel and think about things. Yes, it may be hard. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that there is no, mental health is different. I always say, let me just be clear about this. Negative thoughts sometimes can come in when people have mental health issues, right? That's a
Okay.
whole different story, a whole different program altogether. But
Sure.
there's a difference between mental health and bad behavior. And a
Okay.
lot of times when we say this is who I am, that's a bad behavior.
Okay. So great question. How would I know the difference? Is mine mental health related or is it bad behavior related? How would a listener know the difference between those two? Or is that really hard to identify on the surface?
It is. I've been a special education behavior specialist before I started my own business. Been doing this for about 23 years now. This is probably my 23rd year. And it does
Okay.
take time to recognize, like the obvious, if someone has schizophrenia and can become manic, that's mental health and mental health, right? There will be some behaviors in there that transpire, right?
Okay.
But if someone just has a good example would be someone who is stubborn, right? Someone who's being very stubborn, someone who has a hard time following directions. That can be looked at as mental health as mental health, but at the same time, it's bad behavior sometimes. It depends upon
Okay.
what the situation is. So it does take time to recognize that. I mean, I've been doing this, like I said, 23 years,
Yeah.
and it takes time to see the difference and know the difference between the two.
Sure. So, and the goal would be really not to try to use it as a reason to continue to do it, whether it's bad, if it's bad behavior, it's on us to work on. If it's a mental
That's right.
health issue, then that's where we would bring in a professional to try to help us through that
That's
then. Is
right.
that correct? Okay.
That's right. That is spot on.
Okay. So before we take our break, I want to ask you a question because you talked about you were in the education world for a long time, and now you've recently jumped into owning your own business. And as we talked before we jumped on today, Shay, there's a bunch of people listening from around the world right now that are like, how did you do it? I want to do that. And we always say there's no right or wrong way. So just because Shay did it her way isn't necessarily the way that everybody's got to do it. Was it quick for you? Like you're like, I'm done with this and I'm going to start a business, or was there a long process for you before you started? Kind of share with us the journey if you could before we jump into our break.
Yeah, so ironically, I've been doing this for 5 years now. had
Okay.
this business for 5 years. And it was quite a bit of a journey. I have always been someone who took a step back, assessed. I like to be the observer in the room, right? To see
Okay.
what's happening. And
Sure.
once I've done that, I can then step in and say, hey, here's where the gap is, and this is what I'd like to do. And I noticed that there was quite a bit of negativity happening, negative thoughts. People were feeling bad about themselves. The world was in such disarray.
Sure.
And ironically, during this time, I decided that I was always interested in the brain and how the brain functioned.
Okay.
That's just my jam. I like that stuff. And I was going through a divorce, and I said to myself, I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do. There's nobody to stop me. I have been afraid. I was worried
Yep.
about what people thought.
Sure.
But that I wanted to be a clinical hypnotherapist. I wanted to go
Okay.
into hypnotherapy, and then NLP was a part of that whole
Okay.
journey. And I just
Gotcha.
decided I went through Transform Destiny, did all
Right.
of my trainings through Transform Destiny, and I just end up loving it. So
Awesome.
once I did that, there was this person within the class that I was in. She already had her own brand, her own practice. And she
Okay.
said, once she met me, it was something about me that she wanted me to start my practice inside of her practice.
Oh,
So
nice.
she really just gave me my break into
Okay.
helping me build my clientele and to
Sure.
helping me start my own space before I
Okay.
end up getting my own space. And it was a scary thing. It was
Yeah.
very scary. Here I am in the world of hypnotherapy, in the world of NLP, in the world of helping people become their best self.
Yep.
And I just did it.
Wow. So was it like, did you start doing some of that training while you were still employed?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I still
okay.
do. I still
Okay.
do. I do both. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
I do both. My purpose in this life, talking about being
Yes.
positive, my purpose in this life is to teach, is
Okay.
to coach, is
Okay.
to help a human being, whether it's an infant to adult, to become their better self. Because at the end of the day, when we all transition and leave this life,
Yeah.
have to be happy with who we are.
Sure.
And that is my purpose.
Well, I love that. And I think that's probably a great spot for us to, again, take this break. But think about so many people that are listening, they have this idea about a widget or a service. They have an idea on what they want to do with this business. I think it's a totally different way that you're mentioning it is my purpose is X. And once you knew that purpose to teach, then you kind of filled in the
Yeah.
rest of it around that, which I think is really a great way to look at this rather than think I want to make $1 million or I want to be out on a beach with my laptop. Whatever people have as a vision of what it is to own your own business. I think
Hmm.
it's a great different way to look at it. My purpose is X.
Hmm.
And then once you have that, you can start to really unpack what that business looks like. Were
Yeah.
you were you pretty clear on what your purpose was early, or did that take you a while to figure out that your purpose is to teach?
I think it took me a while to accept it. It took
Hmm.
me a while. There's a difference, right?
Sure.
All roads in this life, the life that we live, all roads lead you to your purpose. People often ask me, how do I find my purpose? What is that purpose? Your
Yeah.
purpose is now. Every sign, every image is showing you your purpose. And in my case,
Yeah.
it was slapping me in the face, and I was being hard-headed. I did not, under no circumstances when I was growing up, did I say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I want to be a teacher." That was
Sure.
not that was not my dream to be a teacher. It wasn't. But I did notice, and when I say signs and symbols and the universe speaks to us,
Yeah.
everything that I tried that was not about teaching and helping
Sure.
people grow failed.
Okay.
It
Wow.
failed. It
Yeah.
wasn't until I will say my age, I'm 57. So it
Uh-oh.
wasn't until I hit my 40s when I said, okay, I hear you talking to me. I'm I'm going to do this. And that's when everything just kind of like took off,
Wow.
right?
Well, I was going to say you're in your 20s, but you already had 30 some years of experience because you look like you're in your 20s. So great job on
Thank you.
this whole life, mind and body is definitely working out for you from there. So, hey, we're going
Thanks.
to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to kind of transition this into business and see how we can help the entrepreneur that's listening. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. Honored to be hanging out with Shay Springer, the founder of Whole Life Mind and Body. And we've been talking about neuro linguistic programming. And for those that are like way over your head, like it is me, I'm like, what does that mean? It's like, okay, deal with your thoughts, and keep them as positive as you can. And I think that there's a lot of people listening that just feel like life happens. And I feel like there's this victim role, it happens to me rather than I allow it to happen or not allow it to happen. And I'm just curious for an entrepreneur listening, what do you do if there's somebody listening that is struggling with positive or negative thoughts? We'll start here. If they are doing that, what do you do? Like if somebody called you and said, Shay, I am struggling with my negative thoughts. Like, do you do stuff online? Does it have to be in person? What's like the starting point for that person that's listening right now?
So if someone called me and said they were having a negative thought or, life just kicks me down, this keeps happening to me, my number one thing I say to them is this, or I like to remind them that this is not happening to you. It's
Hmm.
happening for you.
Yeah. Okay.
If you can change those words, because words are everything. Words mean everything. What you spew out is what you are giving your attention to. So when
Sure.
you realize the things that you feel are negative is happening to you, and then you change that around to say, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me because it's telling me I need to go someplace. I need to go to a different space. It is trying to elevate me. It is an invite to help you to grow, to be
Okay.
better, to step
Sure.
into your full potential.
And it kind of feels like you transition from hopelessness to hope. Because again, when something's done to me, I feel like I can't control it. I have nothing to do with that. But as soon as you kind of turn that corner, like you were talking about, and transition that thought process, I could never start a business. I could never sell $1 million. There's so many things that we
Yeah.
probably face every day that we don't even know we're doing it. It's got to be just such a natural thing. And does it start to like affect every chunk of your life? Do you
Oh,
start to
yeah.
notice the negativity personally,
Yes.
professionally,
Yes.
financially, physically, spiritually, everything?
Oh, yeah. It affects every ounce of your existence, right?
Okay,
Again, let's take it back a few words to your words are everything. The power of your words will take you into the direction you want to go in. So, for example, let's say you hate getting shots, right? The
hmm,
anxiety of going to a doctor's office, right?
sure, yep,
It just hurts, right? I can't
sure,
stand it. I don't want to go to a doctor's. It's just negative, 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 just bad thoughts. You can't get out of it, right?
yep,
You
yep,
feel that, right? You feel that inside. You feel that
yep.
pressure. Everything shifts in your body. But if you know after that doctor's appointment that you're going to go to your favorite restaurant and you're going to order as much as you want to eat because it's your favorite place, then the energy starts to shift in your body,
Okay,
right? It's
so sure.
about recognizing what we feel on the inside. I'm sorry, hold on for a second. Hey, little girl, my daughter is deaf and autistic. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
She brought the dog in. I'm so
You're good.
sorry.
It's all
All
good.
right. So, it's, your body starts to shift and you start to feel different on the inside. We have
Okay.
to recognize and get in touch with what we're feeling in that moment on the
Okay.
inside in order to shift that negative thought. You have to
Sure.
give yourself a better feeling thought. So
Okay.
when you feel upset about something, think about something that makes you feel happy. Think about something that will elevate you. Give yourself a better feeling thought from shifting from the negative space to the positive space.
Wow.
That's the
That's
power right there.
sure, sure. And it feels again like I try to get in the mind of the listener and I'm hearing things like I'm just too busy to do all this. I don't have time to do this, excuses, a lot of excuses again. And I say the same thing because I'm like, I'm, for the little bit of time I'm negative, Shay, I'm fine, right? But it's like, how much negativity is okay? What if it just keeps growing? It feels like it's going to continue to get worse.
Uh,
So do people come to you and with like one little idea about they want to fix one thing and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my
oh yeah.
gosh, there's all this going on. It gets
Mhm.
deeper. Does that happen pretty consistently?
All the time. At all the
Okay.
times because they're so busy trying to fix everything at one time. And you
Okay.
can't do that. Just think
Sure.
about it. It took you years to get this way. It's going to take you a couple years to get out of that. So instead of
Okay.
trying to attack it all at one time, and
Yeah.
you're so busy, take one moment, one purpose, one day at a time. This is how you start your business. This is how you elevate yourself as a human being. One day, one emotion, one action, one thought
Sure.
at a
Okay.
time.
Cool. And then once you get that spot, I guess I picture an entrepreneur listening that gets it. How do I then share it with the people around me without sounding plastic or without sounding like I'm better than them? Because I can see, positive people and negative people, they don't really get along well together,
Right.
because one's negative and one's positive. How would I, as a leader, instill this into my team? What are some thoughts that you have there?
Well, as a leader, just in general, one of the biggest things I see as problems in leaders is
Hmm.
one, they're very reactive, right?
Okay.
Two,
Yeah.
they function out of ego. They function out of power, and they
Okay.
don't function in a space of responsibility,
Mm.
right? And that becomes a problem in leadership just in general.
So if you're a reactive person, if ego is a big deal, if you're power hungry, if you struggle with power, if you've identified those things, are we thinking that we don't want to be reactive? We want to be more intentional? Would that be the kind of the opposite of reactive? Or what would the goal of if I am a reactive person, Shay, what would the opposite of reactive be? Let me ask it that way.
To be the observer. Don't
Okay.
be reactive, right?
Okay.
Here, when you're having a conversation as a leader, and this is so important, and this is where I think a lot of leaders get it wrong. If someone
Okay.
comes to you, right, with a problem, right, or they're feeling stressed or whatever the issue may be,
Sure.
instead of reacting and trying to fix it to get them out of your space or to try to fix it because you think you know what they're going to say next,
Yeah.
stop. Pause. Allow the stillness to set in.
Mm.
Hear the entire story without the intention to just reply. Speak, listen with the intent to understand.
Awesome.
Active
Well,
listening. And we always talk about active
yeah.
listening, right? That's the big word today, active
Yeah.
listening. But let's think
Yep.
about this, Dave. How many people honestly actively listen,
Right.
right?
Not very
Leaders
many.
don't do that because they
No.
function and they operate out of ego, right?
Yeah.
They function and operate out of reactive. So the opposite of being reactive is really just stopping, not being
Okay.
reactive. Stephen Covey said it best.
Yep.
Listen with the intent to understand, really,
Yep.
and not
Yep.
with the intent to reply.
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. And I think one of the things that kind of to broaden that linguistic piece of the NLP is there's a lot of non-verbal things that are going on in NLP. I mean, body language
Yeah.
and the different things like that. So I think for a leader listening right now, again, you may have the right words, but maybe your eye contact is off, or your
Yeah.
tonality is off, your
Yes.
body language is off.
Yes.
So when you're thinking linguistic, it's the whole entire person. It's not just the words
Yes.
that you speak,
It is the
correct?
whole person. It is
Okay.
the entire person, mind, body, soul, sensitivity, understanding, the words that are coming out of your mouth, your facial expressions, your body expressions. All of it speaks a language, right? It's a nonverbal language, right?
Yep.
It's not a spoken language. And when
Sure.
people see that, then they respond according to what they see, not necessarily to what they hear. This is why the deaf community is amazing, right? My daughter is deaf,
Okay.
and they solely rely on what they see
Hmm.
because they can't hear.
Sure.
So body language, facial expressions mean everything. So if
Wow.
leaders would take a moment and stop
Yep.
and recognize what how they're coming across to the person, their audience, who they're speaking to, they
Yeah.
might have a better opportunity of getting what they need done, right?
Yeah.
Being a
Wow.
leader is not about ego, it's not about power, it's about responsibility. It's about
Yeah.
taking that accountability for oneself, and it doesn't challenge, it doesn't silence challenges. And this
Sure.
happens a lot in leadership. When you're challenged, you silence the person because now you're functioning again out of ego, right?
Wow. Yep. Yeah. And I think that, that all of a sudden kind of brings up the word culture, because a culture in a company is either positive or negative, and a lot of times it's led by the leader. He or she ends up being the impetus for that type
Yeah.
of culture,
Mhm.
and they might think they say the right words, but again, if I remember, I'm an only child, so I remember when I was a little kid and I would hear my mom call my name, and there were two ways that it would be called. There was a good way and a not so good way,
Yeah.
and one
Yeah.
was like leading me towards her, and one was like, oh, I think I better scram,
Right. Right. Don't
so
say the full name. Don't say your
right.
full
Oh,
name.
oh my gosh, it was David. It was like, oh, I knew I was busted for whatever, right? But Dave
Yeah.
was like
Yeah,
everything was good, right?
for sure.
But I think that a lot of times leaders, us as leaders, we totally forget that piece, that
Yeah.
we're leading other human
Hmm.
beings that
Hmm.
have the mind and the body. And so I love that, the name of your company with the whole life, mind and body. And do you feel like leaders miss that piece, that they are actually leading a group of human beings, not
Hmm.
AI computers? I mean,
I
does
do.
that you see that a
I
lot?
do. You do see that a lot. They forget that people are human. It's easy to dehumanize their employees. And the sad
Yeah,
thing is that they don't realize that this is what they're doing, right?
sure.
They don't realize that, because I think leaders in general get so wrapped up in their day-to-day operations, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
because they have someone above them to answer
sure,
to.
sure.
So it's all about getting the work done. But while you're getting the work done, you're dehumanizing those people that you're trying to lead. In some
Yeah,
instances, not all, but in many instances, I find that the leaders who get it, they they start to recognize, okay, this person has feelings. This is happening to them, right? And
right.
I don't want to make it worse, but I
Yeah.
can still lead and get the job done, but I just need to just be a little bit more sensitive to what's happening.
Sure. And I think it's funny because, people overlook hearing and listening, and they overlook body language,
That's
and they
right.
overlook some of these simple communication skills that we all need. And they try to find these deep things, and they try to be this great orator in front of the group. And it's like people they don't care what you know until they
Mhm.
know you care. And
Right.
it's just like that empathy piece. We talk about that a lot on this show. Just what happened to the empathy? What happened to trying to understand, that, hey, we got someone on our team that's struggling right now. And the last thing they need is just, I laugh when people say, leave your personal life at home. And it's like, how in the world do you possibly do that? Whether you're going through a divorce or you're going through a sickness
Yeah.
in the family, I mean,
Yeah.
cancer, whatever you're going through, maybe you just
Yeah.
had a bad drive into the office. It's
Yeah.
so hard to
It
just
is
leave
very
that
hard.
in the car. So I was just making sure that we're on the same page because I
Yeah.
hear people, hey, just suck it up and deal with it. It's just like, how does that? I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. I
And
mean, and when they do that too, it causes employees not to want to work,
yeah,
right? You get
exactly.
call offs, right? Because an employee doesn't feel heard. They don't feel
Yeah,
seen. They don't feel
sure.
respected, right?
Yeah,
It's all about what the leader can get from them. But
right.
you got to stop and think, what are you giving them in return? It really is a two-way street. The simplest of things, right? And many leaders don't say thank you.
Yeah.
They don't
And
say
that's
thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate you coming in. You didn't have to. They
yeah.
they forget this. It's the little tiny things,
Yep.
Dave. It's those
Yep.
small things that matter.
Yeah, we talk about small course corrections all the time. And that's one of them as we start to land the plane today, which I think is really funny because I've had leaders say, hey, I pay you. What else do you want from me? And it's just like, man, you are so off on that comment right there.
Yeah.
Because if people only understood that, like you just said, I just appreciate you today. I mean, when's the last
Huh.
time that somebody
Mhm.
said to you, just for no reason, I just appreciate you. And I
Yeah.
if the listener right now, my challenge today to you is just to go find somebody that's doing something right and go call them out on it. What a great job you're doing. Thank you for being here. Whatever it is, try to instill some positivity into your group. People might fall over and be like, "Oh my gosh, what'd you do with the owner of the company?" But it's just one of those things that I think is really helpful for us to be able to do that. So,
Yeah.
a couple questions I'm going to let you go. What would your tip of the day be today? Maybe it's something that we already covered. Maybe it's something that hasn't got out of your heart and soul yet. But what would your tip of the day be today?
I would direct this tip of the day to leaders, just in
Okay.
general, is to stop, right? It's important to stop, pause, and breathe. Because when you become reactive, what you're doing is say, everything that I'm telling you right now is urgent and you must stop what you're doing, and nothing else you're doing matters. You
Yeah.
are dehumanizing them. So stop, pause, and breathe. Because if you don't,
Yeah.
then you are taking the chance of losing someone who is so important. And see your employees, see them, see
Yeah.
that they are human, see that they have lives, acknowledge them and say thank you and be grateful.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I remember as a kid, stop, drop, and roll, right? Was always the thing you said in
That's
fires.
it.
So come up with your own idea as a leader of
Yeah.
what that is. But stopping,
Mhm.
it's so like foreign because we got to sell something or we rent is due or there's always 20 things going. There's always
Yeah.
these plates spinning, right? But the reality is that three-quarters of the team right now, when they quit because of their boss. The
That's it.
research shows that 3 out of 4 people that left your company, you had a large part to do with it. And that's so darn expensive and
Yeah.
so painful for that company. So I love that tip. Thank you for sharing that. I could do this all day, Shay. I got to let you go, but I want to
Thank
ask
you.
you one more thing.
Sure.
If somebody's listening right now and they want to learn more about whole life, mind and body, they want to learn more about neuro linguistic programming or have a question for you, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is through email. You can email me at wholelifemindandbody@gmail.com.
Whole life, mind and body at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And so feel free to ask her a question, fill her
Yeah.
in on what's going on. She'll be happy to help any way that she can. This has been so helpful. For the people that are listening, if you do struggle with negative thoughts, it's not necessarily something that's you need to live with. And this is where I think it's great for us to be able to have somebody like Shay, where you might have a question that it's like, hey,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going through. What do you suggest? Those are great things that, rather than live with it, rather than try to fix it yourself, why
Yeah.
not just email Shay and see
Yes.
what her thoughts are? There might be an easier fix than you think. And
Yep.
that's where, again, I love bringing these types of things every week. Shay, thank you so much. This was so cool. I was nervous about the NLP because I'm like, anytime there's neuro involved, usually people talk way over my head. So
Yeah.
you absolutely crushed it by talking at my sixth grade level. I love it. So I
Well, I am an
appreciate that.
educator, right? I am an educator.
Exactly.
That's what I
Yes,
do.
exactly. So you knew exactly where my level was. You found it, you locked her in, and you did great. So thank you so much. I can't
Thank
wait
you.
to keep learning more about this and watching what happens at Whole Life Mind and Body. So thanks again for hanging out with us.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me. I appreciate you so much.